Why isn't Puerto Rico a state? There have been Puerto Ricans pushing for statehood since the U.S. invaded Puerto Rico at the end of the 1800s.
United States territory since 1898.
In fact, the man who's considered the father of the statehood movement died 100 years ago. So what has taken so long? Why didn't the U.S. make Puerto Rico a state back then when it fought a war and took it from Spain? In one word, racism. I made a video saying the US didn't make Puerto Rico a state after it invaded it because of racism. And some people said that can't be it. Otherwise, why would the US make Hawaii a state? What's ironic is that racism is also one of the reasons it took the US more than 60 years to make Hawaii a state. See, for some lawmakers, it was too Asian. But then in the 50s, something happened. This article talks about how in the 50s there was a narrative framing Asians as a model minority. In fact, some people made the difference between the Asian population in Hawaii that would be useful to the national project versus Puerto Ricans who were seen as perpetuating a culture of poverty. And let's not forget that right now Native Hawaiians make up only 10% of the population in Hawaii. Some Puerto Ricans fear the same thing would happen if Puerto Rico were to become a state. Another thing we should not ignore in the conversation about Hawaii is how the US illegally occupied it and its queen was overthrown. Congress has even apologized for it, and there are Native Hawaiians today who want their independence. I want to ask, first of all, your opinion on Act 22 and on the consequences that some local communities say it's having on them.
I mean, I think Act 22, 60, I think it's horrifying. And I think that it is an example of, I really do think that it's an example of the continued colonization of the people of Puerto Rico. In fact, I actually believe that there's a lot of mirrors here between what we see today and what we saw when Puerto Rico was first colonized by the United States. A lot of people sometimes assume that it was just a military takeover because the United States acquired Puerto Rico in its victory over Spain during the Spanish-American War, except the actual colonization of the island happened using financial tools and instruments through the devaluation of currency, through the kind of the artificially engineered poverty of Puerto Ricans.
We catch a hop, make sure you wet one. Stand foot, never turn right till you left one. This big name yoga, I got stretching. Niggas say steps, but couldn't pass when we touched them. We be stepping. We be stepping. We be stepping.
Ever wonder why rich people move to Puerto Rico, pay less taxes, and live on the beach?
There are a lot of videos like this and I don't usually respond, but this is a big creator with a very large audience, so I want to provide the context that was missing from her video. I want to show you the other side, what local communities say this influx of wealthy people is doing to them. Some Puerto Ricans have been getting letters like this, where an investor buys their whole building and tells them they have to move out because he wants to do something more profitable with the building. I know this because I've interviewed them. This is a woman in her 70s who was hoping to spend the rest of her days in the apartment she was living in her town, but she had to move out after an investor bought the building, and then she had a hard time finding a place she could afford. And it's just that some Puerto Ricans cannot compete with the money coming in. In this article from the New York Times, they interviewed a man who owns his house. He was mowing the lawn in front of his house, and he pretended to be a gardener when investors came up to him because he gets harassed so much to sell his house. He says they give him a blank check and tell him to write whatever he wants on it. And when I make these videos, some of you tell me this is happening everywhere. But imagine that on top of that, in your state, a law passed that gave a tax break only to people moving in. That didn't apply to you who was born there and has been living there. So on top of the uneven playing field that already exists, because in Puerto Rico, wages are much lower than in a lot of the states, on top of that, the people moving in have a tax break that locals don't. I have 2 videos about this if you want to learn more, and the idea is not that you walk away opposing these tax breaks. For these videos, I talk to people who support and defend the tax breaks. The idea is that you have all the information so that your followers not only know how they can benefit, but also know how local communities say they're being affected. This was the moment that members of the House announced they had reached an agreement on a bill to change Puerto Rico's status. And I told you that they're proposing a vote among these 3 options: independence, statehood, and free association. And several people asked, isn't free association what we have now? No, but I understand your confusion because I was confused too. The thing is that what we have now is called freely associated state, which is different from free association. To avoid that confusion, I'm going to refer to what we have now as the Commonwealth. Under the Commonwealth, Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S. The U.S. has power over Puerto Rico. In fact, the U.S. refers to Puerto Rico as a possession in legislation. Free association means a pact between two sovereign nations. So in this case, Puerto Rico would be its own nation entering into an agreement with another country, the US. There are some examples of this with other countries. I did a deep dive into each of the options, and not to toot my own horn, but this is the series I wish I had earlier in life. So if you want to check it out, you know where to find it.
If you ain't realized yet, my account is about conspiracies and speculation. If that ain't your vibe, this ain't the account for you. In 2013, the government released a report indicating that underneath the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and St. Croix was a copious amount of natural gases and approximately 19 million barrels of oil. That's all the report had said. The government never indicated what they were planning on doing with this new information. December 2019 and January of 2020, Puerto Rico was rocked by over 9,000 earthquakes. Earthquakes that made seismologists question their origins because to them, there was no known faults in the area. Right before the earthquake started, 2 industrial vessels were spotted south of Puerto Rico, and fishermen reported hearing loud explosions coming from the area in which these earthquakes originated. The question about fracking is brought up. Fracking is the intentional inducing of earthquakes in order to garner natural gases and oil. The government say nothing to go so. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You think you get a connection?
KAL HALAL, all praises to Yahweh, who they call God, BAHASHAM, in the name, YAHWASHI, who they call Jesus, BAHASHAM, Ruach Kadosh. This is another digital epistle to the 12 tribes of Israel. For Hebrews 13:14. For here have we no continuing sitting, but we seek one to come.
Why isn't Puerto Rico a state? There have been Puerto Ricans pushing for state.
Find some with the numbers. Okay, I got the numbers, man. So every time we go through this, man, we gonna come back. We gonna come back to the 12 tribes chart. I'm gonna ask you if this y'all is real, man. We don't have to come do videos, touch the 12 tribes chart, you know. Last day we got end day prophecies, but this is most important, man, because how you gonna get the end day prophecies? What's more to learn about that? If you're going to deny, I mean, you need both of them, you know. But if you're going to deny the 12 tribes chart, this is very important. How are you going to be accepted in the kingdom? How are you going to be delivered when you were telling the Lord, his own people, that they weren't Israelites? So when these niggas were willing to repent, you told them they weren't Israelites.
Why isn't Puerto Rico a state? There have been Puerto Ricans
no continuous city.
pushing for statehood since the U.S. invaded Puerto Rico at the end of the 1800s.
United States territory since 1898.
In fact, the man who's considered the father of the statehood movement died 100 years ago.
So the father of these niggas say, hey, make us a state, died 100 years ago, and you're going to tell me, man, these are some Mongols. These are Siberian Mongols, Mongoloids. Then why shouldn't they have representation, man?
So what has taken so long?
100 years, man. That's their president, just like Jake. Martin Luther King was not long ago, man.
Why didn't the U.S. make Puerto Rico a state back then when it fought a war and took it from Spain? In one word, racism.
So one white country already possessed them. So if these people weren't Israelites, why didn't these people do what they did with all the other North Korean, South Korean, back one side and build up their economy? You know, these niggas ain't countries like Ukraine or Saudi Arabia or, you know, or China or none.
Didn't make Puerto Rico a state after it invaded it because of racism. And some people said that can't be it. Otherwise, why would the U.S. make Hawaii a state? What's ironic is that racism is also one of the
Yeah, because those are Pacific Islands, those aren't Israelites. So they have no problem making them when they aren't Israelites, man.
Since it took the U.S. more than 60 years to make Hawaii a state. See, for some lawmakers, it was too Asian. But then in the 50s, something happened. This article talks about how in the 50s there was a narrative framing Asians as a model minority. In fact, some people made the difference between the Asian population in Hawaii that would be useful to the national project versus Puerto Ricans who were seen as perpetuating a culture of poverty. Now let's not forget that right now Native Hawaiians make up only 10% of the population in Hawaii. Some Puerto Ricans fear the same thing would happen if Puerto Rico were to become a state. Another thing we should not ignore in the conversation about Hawaii is how the US illegally occupied it and its queen was overthrown. Congress has even apologized for it, and there are Native Hawaiians today who want their independence.
See? And look, man. Look what they did the Japanese, man. These niggas still murked and killed them niggas and overthrew them niggas. Colonized them niggas. Man, this is the same thing that they always do.
I want to ask, first of all, your opinion on Act 22 and on the
And we got another shorty who knows she's an Israelite.
consequences that some local communities say it's having on them.
I mean, I think it's
And you know what? We could.
Act 22, 2020.
This shorty knows she's an Israelite. I mean, I don't know. You look at her. Is she really a tear? She be acting like one. I knew this part that I forget how you even say shorty. Cortez. Cortez, a person of Puerto Rican descent, New York, identified. I am a descendant of African slaves, man. She knows that part of her history, man. Or maybe she pandered, but she know that part of her history at least, whether that comes to her forefather or her forefather, you know, that just might be her foremother. And I'm a descendant of indigenous people. We know no one is literally indigenous to America, you don't think you would have to clarify that a lot, but man, dealing with certain Israelites there, man, the old world is the Eastern Hemisphere, man. Jerusalem's in the Eastern Hemisphere. All right, my identity, many descendant of African slaves and indigenous people. I am a descendant of those Spanish colonizers. How does that make sense? But when you look into the Spanish Inquisition, you understand that they always use Jake against us. The harsh conditions of the Spanish Inquisition can make an Israelite come to tears, man. Can't even imagine the type of shit that they went through, for their faith. And yet, someone listening, a lot of Israelites can be those same reincarnated spirits. I'm descendant of all sorts of kinds, but that doesn't mean I'm black. That doesn't mean I'm native. I could tell. Wait, huh? Okay, whatever, man. Maybe see it there. Not a race. I don't know, bro. I just wanted to find what her mom and her father is. So I Google. Let me just Google this shit. So whether she
Congresswoman-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez surprises a crowd at a Hanukkah event by saying she has Jewish heritage.
People don't know about Puerto Rico, and one of the things that we discovered about ourselves is that a very, very long time ago, generations and generations ago, my family consisted of Sephardic Jews. The culture in Puerto Rico was that people would open their closets and there would be a small menorah inside.
Let's talk about it with editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro. Ben, welcome. Great to have you. I know that you've raised some concerns, or at least pointed out that this potentially does not line up with some of her political leanings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very sick of politicians just generally claiming that some sort of heritage allows them to get off the hook for their current political positions. I've never heard anything about Ocasio-Cortez's Jewish heritage before this. We've seen politicians like Hillary Clinton and John Kerry do the same thing, talking about their Jewish heritage, that they don't actually have to talk about their policies with regard to Jews. Ocasio-Cortez is incredibly close to people like Linda Sarsour and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and she's not...
See, you know, and look at them. You know, these fucking niggers, man. These niggers, man. I'm gonna call them niggers, man. Yeah, they all have no problem. They all have no problem you saying that on YouTube. But look at these niggers, man. Man, like, they have no problem when these people make policies for their people, for the small hat people. You know, she can't just be a politician, you know. But she has to have, their policies got to reflect that. Yet, if a black person came in here trying to make black reforms for black people, this nigga would not have none of that shit. He would not, Ben Shapiro would not have any of that. Yet, in the reverse situation, man, he needs her to speak up for their racial issues.
With about associating with folks who are fans of the anti-Semitic boycotts, vests, and sanctions regime. So again, it's an easy way of avoiding the question, but it has about as much political weight as somebody being accused of racism and then saying, well, I once had a black friend.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up BDS, and you brought that up in a tweet today because she was asked, her spokesperson was asked about it on Friday and kind of gave no comment on it and where she potentially stands on it. But Yoav Litvin retweeted what you had said and said this.
But we know Christopher Columbus came from Spain with Hebrew interpreters.
There's no doubt Ben Shapiro is the quintessential, quote, Uncle Tom of Jews. In his mind, endorsing BDS somehow outweighs being Jewish. Poor Shapiro, he was skillfully shut down by Ocasio and still feels sore over it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the usual line, is that if you criticize Ocasio-Cortez in any way, this is because you're obsessed with Ocasio-Cortez. Again, here's the reality. If you're in favor of boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning the Jewish state, but you're fine with everything the Palestinians are doing, the Iranians are doing, the Saudis are doing, the Yemenis are doing, the Afghanis are doing, or any other country in the region that has no human rights to speak of, but you're somehow going to boycott Israel because somebody's building an extra bathroom in Jewish East Jerusalem, then suddenly that's not anti-Semitic.
See what a bastard he is. See what about, and we know he's fake. She's not really, you know, she's signing those. She'll cry, but she'll sign those bills for the small hatters, you know, because you know you cannot get through the doorway without dealing with them niggas. And now, he's ain't crying over an extra bathroom. This nigga, man. He's a nigger, man. Don't trust niggas like him, man. You know? They might say some good things when it comes to certain things, you know? But, if he, see how wicked these people are, man? They'll talk about their culture and how your culture is so bad. But, man, I could show you a video of these kids throwing a grenade, the IDF throwing a grenade at these Palestinian kids, man. What the... Man, it ain't even the main topics I want to get into, man. But you know, the spirit, man. The spirit. Straight is cute stuff. You know this video had to be great. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find the video, man, but this nigga said these niggas building bathrooms in the Holy Land. What the fuck? These niggas in the Holy Land, man.
Journalists and medics, so you can see there are emergency service workers here, there's an ambulance there are journalists. Here we go, look at this, here we go.
There. Mid throw.
Just told him not to throw.
Almost threw a stun grenade on this nigga. Mid.
They saw the camera and...
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is gonna steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, ya ammi.
Man, these niggas see that these niggas is literally stealing houses, man. I'm sure I already have this, man. But man, they cover fields, they take them by violence and houses, and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Man, and the men are so, where the men at? They have probably got some child support, some system to destroy the men, man. Some eugenics facility tie that man. So where the men at? Yeah, this ain't. Man, watch these children, man. Because man, they probably throw all them grenades at them little boys, man. They let these niggas grow. Man, they let these niggas grow up. I hate these niggas, man.
Anti-Semitic, of course, it's anti-Semitic by definition. I mean, the State Department says if you are to treat Israel in a way you treat no other state, then this is the definition of anti-Semitism. BDS is anti-Semitism, and Ocasio-Cortez is not disassociated from anyone who has associated with BDS or radical anti-Israel activities.
I know at one point you offered up, I think it was $10,000 that you would donate to charity for her to come and debate you. Any response on that?
No, and it wasn't just debating me. It was also she.
People don't know about during the Spanish Inquisition. So many people, my family consisted of Sephardic Jews. Generations ago, my family consisted of Sephardic Jews. You know, the story goes is during the Spanish, that very people don't know about Puerto Rico, and one of the things that we discovered about ourselves is that very long time ago, generations ago, my family consisted of Sephardic Jews. You know, the story goes is during the Spanish Inquisition, so many people were forced to convert on the exterior to Catholicism, but on the interior continued to practice.
Hey, you know, she might be the one, man. Man, that's why, man, these niggas will claim that they're the people, man. You cannot even read a verse to these niggas, man. You cannot even read the verse to these niggas, man. You know, you just read one verse in Revelation, these niggas get to crying. They'll call you an anti-S word. You just read one verse. You know, so much to people. You know, oh Lord, my strength, my fortress, my refuge. My refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth. Surely say, our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, things when have no profit. And that's what this man's gonna say, man. You know, they're both wicked. These niggas will burn in the same fire. He said, "Oh shit, you're Israelite." Here she is. You know, you can't even read this verse. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living power, of the living God, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. Romans 9:28. And that he might make the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which are the Israelites, which he had afore prepared for glory ahead of time, even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, the Israelites dwelling in Judea, but also to the Gentiles, the Greeks and the Israelite foreigners, you know. I'm assuming the word is Grecian, but it's probably Israelite and it's the Israelite foreigners, we know that for sure. Also saith, as he saith also in OC, I will call them my people, which are not my people, and beloved, which is not beloved. And this is beautiful because there's a time, lo on me, not my people. Israelites were not his people. We were rejected, we were casted away, we became a no people. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. And Isaiah, I'm probably butchering that, also cried concerning Israel, though the number of children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. So nigga, the sand of the sea. So if he is truly a child of Israel, he said, oh, she's Israel, he should have believed her, man. The sand of the sea. Or man, so they're saying it to get out of something. Man. But never want to call it the wickedness, when the person the prime minister, I believe, if that's what Israel had, said Gandalf, I'm saying his name wrong. I said Adolf, but said that man didn't want to get rid of all the small hats, but someone told him that he had to. So at first they said he wasn't for that, but someone convinced him that he was. That's not considered anti-Semitic. That man wasn't canceled. But man, these people will claim, oh yeah, that they're the Israelites, man. But whenever someone else was the Israelites, they say, no, you're not. But these people make up such a small percentage of the earth. Why not, man? Won't you scattered to all four corners of the earth, man? What about the other tribes, man? What about Issachar, man? What about Ephraim, man?
They continue to be who they were, even though they were pressured to not be that on the outside world. They had a strong group of people, strong-willed, that were determined to continue living life as they wanted to live it, decided to get on a boat and leave Spain. And some of those people landed in Puerto Rico.
Then she sings a song in Ladino, man. Is that cat? I mean, I don't know, man. We know these politicians will cap for anything. Yeah. So if we go into Spain, we could go into look at these Spanish images, man. The Moors, which really just means black or Moor, it just means black. It's like being called a black person without those social connotations. Because man, what could you call an Israelite, man? What can you call an Israelite without calling him Israel? If you were saying, oh, it's illegal to have that heritage, man, basically I call him black, So when people be, I'm a black person, man, you're denying your heritage, man. Man, you're doing the work of the slave master for him. Yeah, look, man. And we can go more. Man. So we do know about the slaves and the niggas persecuted. In here, the Iberian Peninsula. Iberia. That's Hebrew. Iberian Peninsula. You got the 800 ancient stones written in Paleo Hebrew. Man, they're authentic. Can't fake it, man. So try chart, man. Now we're specifically dealing with Ephraim. Man, that shit was deadly, man. Ugh. But he ain't never gonna talk about that history. I doubt it.
Local communities say it's having on them.
I mean, I think Act 22, 60.
Not even that bad, bro. She's just average. I mean, for a politician, yeah, you got some ugly politicians, man. I'm sure you'll push some crazy, I didn't accidentally say colonist, but colonial. But it is, man. It's the colonial agenda right now they're pushing, man. This new world order, their socialism, man.
I think it's horrifying. And I think that it is an example of, I really do think that it's an example of the continued colonization of the people of Puerto Rico. In fact, I actually believe that there's a lot of mirrors here between what we see today and what we saw when Puerto Rico was first colonized.
No, but I fucked with her before I was in the truth. Before I was woke.
By the United States.
But then again, a lot of these niggas seemed really cool, man. It seemed like a dope idea, man. Before, COVID, man. Before we really got to see. I mean, y'all probably already knew, I wasn't woke. We really got to see, like, their woke agenda, We really got to see, like, man, like, this shit, straight authoritarianism. But that's also before I knew that, I went to public school, so I didn't know that Hitler was Nazi meant National Socialist, that these things are Nazis.
A lot of people sometimes assume that it was just a military takeover because the United States acquired Puerto Rico in its victory over Spain during the Spanish American War. Because the United States acquired Puerto Rico in its victory over Spain. I think that it's an example of the continued colonization of the people of Puerto Rico. In fact, I actually believe that there's a lot of mirrors here between what we see today and what we saw when Puerto Rico was first colonized by the United States. A lot of people sometimes assume that it was just a military takeover because the United States acquired Puerto Rico in its victory over Spain during the Spanish-American War, except the actual colonization of the island happened using financial tools and instruments.
Now, where today do you see people physically enslaving people in the manner that you do? I mean, there are physical slaves in America and everywhere, but where do you see the colonization of a country and they just repeatedly just keep that nation in physical bondage forever? Look at these European countries, man. They benefited from all that money because, man, that money don't go nowhere, man. These niggas hoard it, man. These niggas are selfish, man. These people are selfish. But these people have created such a fake system, a monetary system, that they need to keep these people oppressed to hold up their system, man. That's what we're saying, man. Like, we have physical colonization, but them creating a system oppressing us and us not realizing it. This is just the bread and butter of this world, and it allowed them to take this world to the next level. But we know all that shit falls apart because they're white governments, they're white people in authority. That sounds like a joke, but then don't let it white. After this whole shit, I hope after this whole shit, I mean, fuck how y'all feel, but I hope we all can agree at the end of the day that a white person should not be allowed around the bank. A small hat should not be allowed around the bank. Man, we're going to see the people that you assume are the most trustworthy, the most terrible, most likely to murder, steal, and kill, and violent, commit adultery, are going to be the righteous rulers of the earth, man. And we're not going to use the usury.
Through the devaluation of currency. The actual colonization of the island happened using financial tools and instruments through the devaluation of currency, through the kind of the artificially engineered poverty of Puerto Ricans.
And these seasons they profit off of engineering poverty.
This was the moment that members of the House announced they had reached an agreement on a bill.
I'm getting a phone call, so if that kind of interrupts my ideas, if I don't remember where exactly the idea that I left off on, at one point that's
to change Puerto Rico's status. And I told you that they're proposing a vote among these three options: independence, statehood, and free association. And several people asked, isn't free association what we have now? No, but I understand your confusion because I was confused too. The thing is that what we have now is called freely associated state, which is different from free association.
See, man, hate the heathen, man. The heathen is just garbage, man. These niggas are so wicked, man. These niggas are liars. See what little BS they have. This is Antiochus, man. And we see Antiochus back, I believe that is invited to the spirit. Antiochus. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the souls of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. But the Lord Yahweh is my defense, and my God, and my power. BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI is my refuge, or is the rock of my refuge, and he shall bring up them their own iniquity. To bring unto them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yeah, the Lord Yahweh, our power, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, to cut them off. These niggas is framing. These niggas, man. See what they do with their law, man. See what type of bullshit they do with their law. We'll see.
Free association. Agree. on a bill to change Puerto Rico's status. And I told you that they're proposing a vote among these three options: independence, statehood, and free association. And several people asked, isn't free association what we have now? No, but I understand your confusion because I was confused too. The thing is that what we have now is called freely associated state, which is different from free association. To avoid that confusion, I'm going to refer to what we have now as the Commonwealth. Under the Commonwealth, Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S. The U.S. has power over Puerto Rico. In fact, the U.S. refers to Puerto Rico as a possession in legislation. Free association means a pact between two sovereign nations.
Man, you're a literal possession, man. You can call these a heathen. We Israelites, none of us have our own country, man. We don't have our own culture. Wah, wah, wah. Man, and just because you're in culture, nigger, man, don't speak for the rest of the tribes, man. They're not all cultures anyways, man, because we're all speaking the heathen. No, we're all speaking Latin. You know? These niggas just got a little language. These niggas got a little smoother history, man. Jake refused to accept the history. That's why them niggas was getting them niggas was getting fucked up, man. That's why y'all niggas had to get fucked up the most, man. Dude, had to get fucked up the most, you know. And, you know, I was kind of kidding about that, you know. But, you know, Hispanic means property of Spain.
That they're proposing a vote different from free association. To avoid that confusion, I'm going to refer to what we have now as the Commonwealth. Under the Commonwealth, Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S. The U.S. has power over Puerto Rico. In fact, the U.S. refers to Puerto Rico as a possession in legislation.
In possession, and refuses them to make them a country to give them rights.
Free association means a pact between two sovereign nations. So in this case, Puerto Rico would be its own nation entering into an agreement with another country, the U.S. There are some examples of this with other countries. I did a deep dive into each of the options, and not to toot my own horn, but this is the series I wish I had earlier in life. So if you want to check it out, you know where to find it.
And do these niggas get to negotiate with Russia? Do these niggas get to negotiate with Putin? You know, do these niggas get to negotiate with China, with themselves? You know, outside of America? No. Man, they can say that, oh, they're their own country. But at the end of the day, this clearly it was clearly a possession of Spain. And it went from the hands of the U.S. These niggas are not sovereign. These niggas say, you gotta ask for statehood or you ought to leave. Those are two opposites. Which don't make no sense.
Realize yet, my account is about...
Unless you come to the understanding that these people are Israelites, man. I don't know how it makes sense. So we know. Now we're gonna look at the 12 charges again. It's Ephraim. Hope that makes sense, man. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come, man. I don't even need to grab it. I could just go every time. I'm gonna come back to these same precepts, man. I ain't gonna offend new ones. I'm gonna just man. Zechariah 11:5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they sell them say. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord Yahweh, for I am rich, and their shepherds pity them not. So, there is a conspiracy of her prophets in the midst thereof, like a roaring lion, raven the prey. They devour souls. They have taken the treasures and the precious things. They have made her widows thereof.
About conspiracies and speculation. If that ain't your vibe, this ain't an account for you.
See, natural disasters, man. You see this a lot in the 80s, man. It seemed like how you always get tsunami, earthquake. It only seemed like it hit AHBAD Island. You know? It seemed like, man, the more civil disobedience, the more disobedience against a white state, the more natural disasters that hit your country.
In 2013, the government released a report indicating that underneath the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and St. Croix was a copious amount of natural gases and approximately 19 million barrels of oil. That's all the report had said. The government never indicated what they were planning on doing with this new information. December 2019 and January of 2020, Puerto Rico was rocked by over 9,000 earthquakes. Earthquakes that made seismologists question their origins because to them there was no known faults in the area. Right before the earthquake started, 2 industrial vessels were spotted south of Puerto Rico, and fishermen reported hearing loud explosions coming from the area in which these earthquakes.
Massive earthquake from bomb.
A World War II bomb He tried to defuse it. The powerful blast sent a column of water into the sky and shook buildings and boats nearby. Thankfully, nobody was injured. The Polish Navy had been working to defuse the bomb. It had been resting near the Baltic Sea, 40 feet beneath the surface for 75 years. The 19-foot bomb held more than 5,000 pounds of explosives. The bomb was known as a, quote, tall boy, or earthquake bomb. It was used towards the end of the war by British forces, in this case, in an attempt to sink a Nazi warship. Earthquake bombs were so powerful, their explosions would trigger shockwaves, destroying large reinforced targets. Because of the threat posed by the old bomb, Polish authorities had temporarily relocated hundreds of people living nearby.
I'm not scared. I'd like to stay, but my wife is more scared, says this man. I'm fearful that it might explode, she says.
The woman's fears were confirmed on Tuesday. On the upside, the bomb no longer poses a threat to the community. This is Inside Edition Digital.
Yeah, they had to evacuate the other people. So, nigga, they could start an earthquake 100 miles. They could drop a bomb 100 miles. It causes a 3.9 magnitude earthquake, man. It'll always just be funny, man. Because you go see an earthquake, man, and they'll tell somebody new in the island, man, they Haiti, man. They knew there was an earthquake, man. But, man, it just was a mistake, man. Like, they didn't tell them niggas, man. You always hear some nonsense stuff like that, you know? So, just... Yeah. So, man, just the type of... It's the ship could just handle that type of shit, man. So, imagine real war. Man, when these niggas are dropping bombs on each other left and right, you're gonna feel earthquake on earthquake. That'd be Jake, man.
Originated. The question about fracking is brought up. Fracking is the intentional inducing of earthquakes in order to garner natural gases and oil. The government say nothing tal go so. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Catch a hot, make sure you wet one. Step two, never turn right till you left one. Listen, big name yoga, I got stretching. Niggas say steppers but couldn't pass when we touched them. We be stepping. We be stepping. We be stepping.
I was nearly murdered in Puerto Rico.
We see how they destabilize these nations to keep them poor. But hey, man, you're not gonna tell me the curses, man. These are the Israelites, man. This is one Israelite to another, you know. And you see, and it says, so that the delicate, Deuteronomy 28:54, man, the curses, man. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, towards the wife of his bosom, towards the remnant of his children, he shall leave.
I was recording a video in La Perla. Someone came up to me and asked me to stop recording. Luckily, I listened because the following week, someone did not listen and was murdered. I didn't realize how much danger I was in. I had a great time. The nightlife and the food were amazing. I went hiking and experienced the wilderness. Definitely go to Puerto Rico, but be very careful.
Yeah, from my understanding, they're done with the colonization, you know, especially Acts 22 specifically, and certain things like that have allowed white people to come in and colonize them and price them out of their own land, you know. And these white people could live essentially a tax-free lifestyle. Well, they don't get the benefit off it at all. Man, so imagine white people get to come and be a tourist in your country 24/7. Well, you just gotta deal with poverty, and that shit just makes everything more expensive for you.
Puerto Rico. I was recording a video.
All the fucking.
Your transition is pretty cool, though.
Bella. I've seen a million of these videos and they're all the fucking same. It's like a fucking template. I was almost shot, murdered, whatever, because I was doing some touristy shit in La Perla. Listen, I'm gringa, and even I know. Do not record.
I'm gringa. I know, man. You may say like, she cultured. No, man. She's just speaking in her colonizer language.
Or take pictures in La Perla. Idiom.
Maybe. You know, maybe she's an Israelite. Maybe she's another Eden.
If you are a tourist, you really
not even go there unless you are going with a Puerto Rican or invited there. You really do not as a tourist.
A lot. Why should I not go to La Perla? Okay, I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Look, 24-year-old Sirius from Delaware. He was beaten with items and fucking burned, okay? Because he was taking pictures in La fucking Perla, okay?
And Jude about to be this lit, man. You know, y'all just want to be clicked up with the heathen. Y'all just want to live the best life with the heathen, man. And the more white people they see, man, their life gets worse.
Tourists should not go there because a lot of the times they have this sense of entitlement that gets them in trouble, and they're disrespectful to the people who actually live there. And
so y'all ruining my lifestyle if I catch y'all taking pictures, sending videos to make this shit seem more popping like a vacation place, more popping for y'all crypto fucking douches to come over, nigga, murk your ass. You know, it's not at least how it do, but you know, I imagine that's how 2/3 thinking.
sometimes they end up unalive because of it. So it's just safer and smarter to just not fucking go.
Man, you're not gonna tell me these aren't Israelites. You're not gonna tell me that these curses, man, that these niggas ain't murdering niggas and committing do it, just like them Southern Kingdom. That's the curses right there. You're not gonna tell me those aren't Israelites, man. I hate you, man. If you know, man, you hate the soul tracks. I hate you, man. Man, this is annoying, man. Haggai 1:6. Ye have sown and brought in little, ye eat, but ye have not. I'll come back to this, man. You know, this took a little derail, became longer than I thought it was. But you know, hey, I believe it was edifying.
Millionaires are moving to Puerto Rico. I mean, there's going to be gentrification.
We are being displaced.
Man, you know, man, just don't be fooled just because you know they appear to be failure. You know, and you know, immigration probably for light skinned people, so people have more of a Eurocentric, you know, belief. You know.
Our own country.
We're not pushing anyone out.
We're going to have an even more segregated Puerto Rico.
All of those images are from the same town, Dorado, Puerto Rico. That's a town some 15 miles outside of San Juan, where two things are true. Number one, the most expensive house to ever be sold in Puerto Rico is located in Dorado, and it sold this year for $30 million to a family.
$30 million, man. That's a female-ass world, man. That shows you we live in some matriarchy, man. Having money value, having a money value, like what I mean by dollar value on property, you know, and so much bullshit outbidding, you know, this fast food lifestyle. Like, look at this shit, man. This shit not normal. Fucking ruins our life.
Moving from California. What's also true is that a third of Dorado's population lives in poverty, according to the census. That's 3 times the national poverty rate in the United States.
Dorado, aka fucking heaven on earth.
It's also the town that YouTuber Logan Paul announced he's moving.
Yeah, heaven on earth. If you don't fucking live there, man, you're calling that man. What do you say? Heaven on earth, man. Genesis 27:28. Therefore, God, my power, will give will give thee the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty corn and wine. You know? And man, they eating all that corn in America, man. And these niggas, man, especially that corn, man. These niggas enjoying that in the Americas. Corn, man. Look. What's his name? Logan Paul, Jake Paul, I think it's Jake. That nigga, he eating plenty of corn and wine, nigga, in the land. Man, Puerto Rico, man. I mean, if there's corn in Puerto Rico, I don't know. I assume there is. I mean, there gotta be, man. So much corn in the languages, in a lot of language, you know. That's how you know these niggas are Israelites, because the word for corn, you know. So yeah, man. Just from the top Edomite to the bottom Edomite, man. He in the heaven, man. To the bottom of the poor Edomite, y'all just 2-time losers, man. Let people serve thee. Let the nations bow down to thee, man. I don't even want to read this, man. I don't even want, man. I want to keep playing this video, man, to really see, man.
working to.
I thought it was more third world than I suspected. So I went out there to scout it, and I just fell in love with it.
The main reason rich
He thought it was more third world, man. He thought it was more developing, man. He didn't think he could live like a fucking rich white kid, man, and deal with fucking third world prices.
like Logan are moving to Puerto Rico is because they get tax breaks that they can't get anywhere else in the States.
If you're like me and you bought Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can sell it for a profit and pay zero tax if you live in Puerto Rico.
And this is how some Puerto Ricans feel about it.
Yo. Tax evaders, come out to play it. Querido Logan, we see you moving down here to PR. You're just a 21st century Columbus named Logan.
On his podcast, Logan Paul's friend said he created a PowerPoint presentation to try to convince them to move to Puerto Rico with him, and that he gave them reasons like this one.
He showed us in his PowerPoint, mamacitas.
He also said taxes in California are too high.
And for what? Because the potholes in the streets are not fixed.
Aquí va a sentir pure gentrification en la calle, todo chava.
There are potholes in Dorado too, but Fernando Rodriguez, who has been living there his whole life, says that streets in some areas are in worse conditions than in others.
Los barrios tienen la calle chava. Y está más que en los barrios, pasar por las principales urbanizaciones cerradas, no hay ninguna calle.
Hey, being rich in Cali almost still ain't worth it. That's just some bullshit, man.
Fernando drove me around to show me what he sees as two different Dorados.
So, extrema pobreza en un lado y extrema riqueza a la derecha, como que divididos por una pared gigantesca.
The extreme wealth he's talking about is concentrated in places like the Ritz-Carlton Reserve, where that $30 million home I mentioned is located.
Man, look at that
Se puede decir que ese es como que el dream job de mucha gente de Dorado.
This is Puerto Rico, man. This is not their, supposedly this is their own sovereign. Okay, I'm not gonna say sovereign, because legally it's a property, but they say it's supposed to be their own nation. You know, nation of the Puerto Ricans. You know, the rich Puerto Riches. And it seems like the only Puerto Riches, man, still. And these people, where did all that wealth and slavery go? They went directly into the system, and look at these white people still benefiting from this shit, man.
Van a Ritz-Carlton pues tener un trabajo estable que te va a pagar bien en Dorado, pero nunca vas a
Ritz-Carlton.
Y pues vivimos.
Man, look, man, you see the Ritz-Carlton, how nice that is, and the roads over there, man. The other roads over there look like fucking Ritz. It look like they stepped on Ritz, man. That's what the street. That's what the street.
Pero no podemos estar aquí.
So I asked Fernando if he thought that the jobs like the ones at the Ritz-Carlton make the tax incentives that attract wealthy people worth it.
Pienso que no es justo porque prácticamente estamos costeando los gastos de ellos. Estamos como que pagando los taxes de ellos, dándole la comodidad, dándole las calles, organizando los parques, dándole las escuelas más buenas.
Some of the tax breaks that are available for people.
Gastos de ellos. Estamos como que
I don't think it's fair that we're paying for their expenses. We pay their taxes, giving them the comfort. Man.
Taxes de ellos, dándole la comodidad, dándole las calles, organizando los parques, dándole las escuelas más buenas.
Some of the
costeando los gastos de ellos. Estamos como que pagando los taxes de ellos, dándole la comodidad, dándole las calles, organizando los parques.
Paying for their streets, taking care of the parks, giving them the best schools.
Escuelas más buenas.
Some of the tax breaks that are available for people moving to Puerto Rico like Logan Paul are not available to Puerto Ricans like Fernando. And I'm going to get into the tax incentives in a minute, but first you should know that Puerto Rico has the highest sales tax of any state. And it also has higher prices for imported goods like cars and food when compared to some states. And now housing prices in cities like Dorado are going up.
Los que se criaron en los barrios se les va a hacer bien difícil adquirir una casa en Dorado hasta en los mismos barrios porque está subiendo el precio de todo.
En Puerto Rico está ocurriendo la gentrificación.
Raúl Santiago Bartolomé is a researcher who's studying gentrification in Puerto Rico.
Para tenerlo claro, ¿no?
Okay, man. That made me feel better, a little more kind of cool and that shit. But he said, and let the people, Genesis 27:29, let people serve thee, the nation bow down to thee, and the Lord of thy brethren, and be Lord over thy brethren. And let thy mother's sons bow down to thee, and cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be everyone that blessed thee. Man, and there was a time, any man, if you submitted to the Edomites, man, you were prosperous. At least you were, you know. If you sold out the nation, at least you and the leader of your nation were prosperous, you know. They sold out everyone else, and everyone else was prosperous. Look at China. They got a working class of like 500 million people. Go look at, I imagine Singapore. I imagine Japan to destroy their country, built their ass up. You know, Taiwan. Saudi Arabia, I imagine. I mean, their family had Bin Laden family had good relations with America, you know, I imagine. You know, those families were contracts for that. I imagine, you know, America was contract for that. And let's see what happened, man. And it's going to be reversed, man. Israelites going to get that. But now we're bowing to our mother's son, man. We're bowing to Edom right now. And the fatness is the best of. We go into fatness. fatness, the fat piece, the fertile piece, the richly, the rich Carlton, the richly prepared food, fat, fatness, fat pieces, the oil, olive oil, the sprout, the vigorous, the fertile spots, the fertile places, man. That's what this thing got. So, man, let's go look. Let's go look. Let's go look where the Israelites live.
Pasa por las principales urbanizaciones cerradas, no hay ninguna calle, chaval.
Fernando drove me around to show me what he sees as two different Dorados.
So, extrema pobreza en un lado y extrema riqueza a la derecha, como que divididos por una pared gigantesca.
The extreme wealth he's talking about is concentrated in places like the rich available to Puerto Ricans.
Y pues, de las calles,
goods like cars, studying gentrification, the tax.
dream job de mucha gente.
What is this, man? Does this look like shit dying over there? Does this look unfertile, like bad soil, like bad land? Does this look like low premium? You know, I can tell that's the dream job of a lot of people who live in Dorado, man. So it's these dream jobs to go work for the niggas that are gentrifying their stuff, man. These are Israelites. Stop.
Si trabajas en Ritz-Carlton, pues tienes un trabajo estable que te va a pagar bien en Dorado, pero nunca vas a poder quedarte en eso. Y pues vivimos alrededor de él, pero no podemos estar aquí.
So I asked Fernando if he thought that the jobs like the ones at the Ritz-Carlton make the tax incentives that attract wealthy people worth it.
Pienso que no es justo porque prácticamente estamos costeando los gastos de ellos. Estamos como que pagando.
In a minute, but first you should know that Puerto Rico has the highest sales tax of any state, and it also has higher prices for imported goods like cars and food when compared to some states. And now housing prices in cities like Dorado are going up.
Los que se criaron en los barrios se les va a hacer bien difícil adquirir una casa en Dorado, hasta en los mismos barrios, porque está subiendo el precio de todo.
En Puerto Rico está ocurriendo la gentrificación.
Raúl Santiago Bartolomé is a researcher who's studying gentrification in Puerto Rico.
Para tenerlo claro, no es que todo Puerto Rico se esté gentrificando, es que ciertos lugares están beneficiándose de mayor inversión y actividad económica y otros lugares lo que les toca es desinversión y deterioro. Y eso lo que lleva es a una población más segregada.
He says the data so far shows gentrification in towns like Dorado, San Juan, Vieques, Isabela, Aguadilla, en Rincón.
Lo que quiere decir es que si viven en esos lugares, probablemente en el futuro aumenten los precios a nivel que tal vez se tengan que mudar, porque no pueden cubrir los costos de vida en estos lugares, pero también quiere decir que parte de la fuerza trabajadora que trabaja en estos lugares no puede vivir ahí, tiene que vivir cada vez más lejos, y que lo que se puede ahorrar en costos de vivienda por vivir más lejos, probablemente esos costos los va a incurrir en transportación. En otras palabras, lo que vemos es que son lugares que excluyen personas de clase media y clase baja a que puedan entrar y puedan acceder al tipo de oportunidades que se producen en estos lugares.
The tax breaks are not part of Raúl's studies, so he's not trying to prove a link between gentrification and the tax breaks. But one thing he is measuring is the concentration of wealthy individuals, and that is going up in the cities I mentioned. And the intent of these tax breaks was to attract wealthy investors to Puerto Rico. So let's look at how they work. Act 20 is for businesses, and it lowers the corporate tax rate that businesses would have to pay in the United States of 21% to 4% in Puerto Rico. And then there's Act 22, and that's the one that's facing the most criticism. That's for individuals, and it's the difference between paying up to 37% in capital gains tax in the United States to 0% in Puerto Rico. And capital gains tax is what you pay when you make a profit on things like real estate, stocks, or cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And that last one has been attracting a lot of people to Puerto Rico because, as we've seen, the price of cryptocurrencies has been skyrocketing. So if you bought cryptocurrencies and they keep going up in price while you're living in Puerto Rico, you don't have to pay any taxes on it.
Welcome everybody to Crypto Monday San Juan. I'm your host Pedro Rivera. We have a special event here for you tonight, right here in La Perla, Puerto Rico, right in the heart of Old San Juan.
About a month ago, I went to an event called Crypto Mondays. That's where people living in Puerto Rico or who are interested in moving here get together to talk about cryptocurrencies.
One of the things that makes Puerto Rico attractive is because the cost of living is pretty low compared to where I'm from, Los Angeles. And I could maybe take advantage of the tax benefits that are here also.
We picked Puerto Rico because it's a beautiful place with beautiful people, and I feel like we're going to be the most productive.
You can see, man, these Puerto Ricans, they're white, man. They're white, man. They look white, man. Go listen to these people, man. You go listen to the nigga who lived in Cali. These niggas look like they're under the curses, man. These niggas are, you're telling me. So everything, all the examples I'm showing you how the Puerto Ricans, they so-called Puerto Ricans, which means Puerto riches, man. But, man. And thou shalt become an astonishment and a byword among all the nations, whither the Lord Yahweh shall lead thee. Taino people. Initially, Columbus christened. It's funny, christened the island as San Juan Baptista. You know, Saint John the Baptist.
Still, the name was soon changed to Puerto Rico, or Rich Port, when the Spaniards realized the impressive amount of gold from the rivers. So these niggas not the Israelites, man? Man, I know niggas who were telling me, man. Man. I mean, I guess they'll refer the shit to those are Aztecs specifically, man. But they said the Aztecs came here with the Spaniards, man. Ain't no niggas gonna get murked for that gold. And they came with the Spaniards, man. Ain't no nigga, man. You ain't, gold ain't not important, man. Man, I'm not the Aztecs are out of it. Gold the same way, man. Rich ports, man. And then, man, I bet you if we look at what they were doing in Richport, Port of Riches, them niggas weren't doing that shit nicely, man. Them niggas weren't getting the gold done nicely, man. Them niggas ain't have hands. I mean, but I know he did this in Haiti, man. Man, these niggas know, man. Fake severed hands placed on Christopher Columbus's statue. Man, ah, yeah, who cares? But man, you go get this nigga gold. This ain't until you go get him gold. You say it's not enough gold. Okay, we can read right after. Columbus and his crew believed there were gold fields in the province of Sisincal in Haiti, if I'm saying that right. He and his 13, he and his men ordered all the native 14-year-olds in order to collect a certain amount of gold. Natives who didn't collect enough gold. So how you gonna tell me that's enough? You got your hands cut off. You couldn't tell my ass to go get more? Fuck. Man, I could get more, man. You could just say that's not enough and they'll go point at it and say, go get more gold, man. But how the fuck you know there's enough gold? How do you know gold, man? How do you know, man, you just got here off the boat. How the fuck? And that's how evil and wicked these niggas is, man. And that's why, man, them niggas gotta teach you this shit at first age, man. And they gotta tell you that Christopher Columbus discovered America to find out, he didn't discover the continuous landmass of America, man. But they muddy the waters, especially introducing that, because, man, to be a 5-year-old, 6-year-old to learn about the history of these Israelites being exterminated in school, you gotta do that shit early so these niggas don't feel like it's weird, man. If you was eating Thanksgiving every day, man, you found out when you were 15 the history of that, man, you would not fuck with America. Send your kid to public school, man. Don't waste your time, bro. Let's go peep it, man. Hope there's a clean list. Make it easy. Okay, there you go. Christopher Columbus enslaved native people for gold, But, the Taino people are the same people in Haiti. So I can use this example. I'm good, man. So because Columbus reported the plethora of native slaves, rivers of gold, fertile pastures to Queen Isabella, man, and King Ferdinand. Man, is the word not fertile? Is the word not fertile, man? And these niggas still got this shit today, man. And these niggas will tell you that these niggas are Israelites. And these niggas will tell you that these niggas are Edomites, aren't Edomites, man. Tell me that this is not a fulfillment of prophecy, man. Columbus was given 17 ships and more than 1,200 men on his next expedition. However, Columbus had to deliver hundreds of native slaves died on their way, and gold was not bountiful as they expected. So maybe if you didn't cut off these niggas' hands, you could have got more gold. Columbus was forced to work the natives in the gold mines until they're exhausted. Those who opposed were beheaded and had their beheaded or had their ears cut off. So if you're lucky, your ears are cut off. In the provinces of Sisinka and Haiti, whichever does. So all persons over 14 had to supply at least a timel of gold dust every 3 months and were given. So man, if you didn't get enough gold on your first trip to be impressed, how are we gonna keep coming back with enough gold to please you? You see the type of, but it seems so psychotic, man. But we sin. I mean, it is, man. But we sin so bad, man, that the Lord had to hit us with some illogical, ass, torturous, horrible punishment like this. Because how wicked Israel is, man. And man, we see how we sin every day, how we deserve to sin, you know. The gold dust every 3 months, or were given copper necklaces as proof of compliance. You know, those who did not fulfill the obligations had their hands cut off, which were tied around their necks until they bled to death, man. Some 10,000 dead handless, man. In those 2 years' time, approximately 250,000 Indians, which means savages, you know. So we could say Northern Kingdom, Taino, Ephraim, in Haiti were dead. Many of those deaths were included mass suicides, intentional poisons, and mothers killing their babies to avoid persecution. According to Columbus, a few years before his death, gold was the most precious of all commodities. You know, gold is money's defense. Gold shall constitutes treasure, and he who possesses it has all he needs in the world. Also means the means